Welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I am Nerderdog, and I stole the introduction from this guy.
Nerdarchist Ted, how are you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
Awesome. That was fun. Switcheroo.
Well, for a while in the beginning, when it was our turn, you were like, "Hey, can I do the introduction?"
Yeah, I love doing it. I just can't hit the button here, but we got the producer gave me a hand signal, so I knew we were.
Sure. I mean that's just how it goes sometimes. So I know that the description somewhere says we're talking about knights, but I'm like, hey, I can put on a knight sweatshirt. Different spelling, different whatever's. Knights was last week, I know, but
Hey, after you watch this live chat, you can go to the channel and watch that one, which was pretty awesome. I thought it was fun. Knights are very cool. I enjoyed the newsletter that you wrote about knights as well. And Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of inspired by that one. As I've shared before, and it's going to be shared a lot because it takes a while. I'm rewatching Game of Thrones, and so for that one, I basically was inspired by Solaris's armor, and I'm like, hey, he's there's not really paladins in that world, not that I would say. So I'm like, all right, well, what kind of things would I want to give to a fighter to make them more paladin-esque? So I made a cool suit of armor for it.
Yeah, and it'll be in the website on Sunday. But to tie it into the night, I actually was thinking, because it was like cool armor that grows flowers and things like that around it and stuff, and had some other cool abilities. But what if they were only bloomed in the nights? Like a night of the night? That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, you could
to tie them together. That is one of the cool things I was thinking about nights during this past week when I was, putting the newsletter together. It's like, just like a night of anything sounds cool. So a night of the night sounds like a good place to start this week's live chat.
So, I mean, a night of the night would be, pretty interesting. I was going to go in a completely different direction. And
we got plenty of time. We're only 2 minutes in. I got a whole list.
I've got a couple of things
to
talk about here. I've actually already written my nightly newsletter.
Oh, nice.
I'm trying to get ahead of things, but with me being
always are ahead on the newsletter. I will give you that.
But with me being on vacation this week, I've got some writing.
Yeah, got a lot of free nights.
But when I look at night, night, I think it typically is tied to darkness and evil and that kind of stuff. But if you were to make a nightly order of the night, would you be looking to have that be like a lawful evil kind of thing, or were you looking at more like a lawful neutral, or would this be like totally a good group? What are you seeing for this?
My inclination is a more goodly thing. I like the idea that I also was thinking about how the knight's often perceived. It's like it's dangerous, it's bad in fantasy worlds. Like that's when like literally demons come out and stuff in the night. But my heart went to a more positive thing, and I was thinking of like Twilight clerics and stuff, or like people that protect the night and like make sure the night is safe for travelers and people in their homes.
We know the night is dark and full of terrors.
It is indeed.
My next tie-in into Game of Thrones, which I'm like, all right, I got to make sure I have this quote right. So I wanted to, go and pull that up. And that that can kind of go into definitely a lot of different directions as to like in your world, why is the night considered evil or whatever. But if you're talking about making a nightly order that protects the night, this would be I mean you could just kind of twist your paladin of devotion a little bit and make it as opposed to being devoted to a particular cause of again, Game of Thrones, we're the watchers in the night, we're going to be the ones who stay out. So like, perhaps they get infused with power to have improved sight in the darkness. Maybe they can see through magical darkness. There's a lot of them.
Oh yeah, so many cool directions you could go, and different abilities and things that they could, even outright have, or at least reflavor as, nightly perspective. Which is one of the fun things about D&D and stuff. It's like, all you take is like just look at something a little different, and it can be totally set your imagination off in some new direction.
Like I could definitely see, this kind of order as either getting weapon black or having black steel forged, and their armor is black. They wear black, so that they don't glisten and shine like your typical other.
Yeah, it would be like real, like a matte finish, like all dull.
Mm-hmm. You.
Hey, is there anything like what would foil dark vision though? It's like it's in shades of gray, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, in a D&D world, like we know a lot of creatures have dark vision, and like accounting for that, what do you think would just like the perfect shade of gray actually make him like invisible or in dark vision? Because it's like I just look like a gray blob like everything else that you see.
And that could absolutely be a thing. Perhaps this order has armor that basically blanks you out as far as dark vision is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So while wearing this armor under cover of darkness, you are considered invisible.
Oh, that's a cool magic item or special, item that they could aspire to if you are such a knight.
Typically, all of these kind of orders and what have you, I would imagine, play your world however you want, but I imagine there are, incentives, and I don't remember. You'll probably fill me in, but like there's a score that you can acquire by doing quests and that kind of stuff with different organizations.
Oh yeah, like the renown.
Renown, thank you.
Yeah.
You could collect renown within the organization, and once you get to a certain point, you can say, okay, well, do you want this kind of perk, or do you want this, armor that we uniquely have the recipe for?
Mm-hmm.
You can have a lot of fun with it.
Oh yeah, I've always thought it's cool whenever a character like inherits or earns some kind of like item from some personal goal that they had.
Mhm.
Like I've played, that's a common theme in games when I'm running them. I like to do that for players, and I love it when I'm a player too. It's cool. It's like, you know what I mean? Like if it's like some ancestral thing that's like, passed down, and it's like now you're in charge of it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, playing a character like that, even if it's just part of what you bring to the table with that character is thinking that and sharing it obviously with the other players, that can have a huge impact on like how much fun that campaign is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if you want to go old school, there was the different types of vision in the earlier D&D.
Ultravision and infravision and stuff. Yeah.
Like,
oh man, yeah, that's cool.
Imagine if you could unlock those kind of abilities of like, oh, you literally see the heat. As long as the person is not behind total cover, there is no hiding. You can just pinpoint them out to whatever you're.
Yeah, predator vision.
Yeah.
I believe elves and the like had that, in like underground races like dwarves had ultravision, which was like seeing UV light, like everything. So it's like everything was black light. That'd be weird. Can you imagine if that was just your normal? I mean, I guess it wouldn't be weird to them because that's all they know.
Well,
if everything just looked like a black, like velvet painting.
I looked at something today where certain insects that help pollinate flowers and that kind of stuff. Like there was a particular light that showed how insects view these things, and it kind of stood out like that. Like,
oh yeah,
what we saw as flowers are like sparkly gemstones to them, and it's like, holy crud, that's so different. And that loosely,
that is pretty interesting. Yeah,
loosely ties into the fact that the perspective is super important. And we, as mere human beings, we are completely visual creatures, and just assume that everything else that sees things the way that we do.
That's a great point.
And like, whether you want to tie this into the magical world of D&D, or whether I'm just using my bizarre little bit of knowledge, but as a a pet owner, and somebody who cares about animals, like, it's interesting to see that we are so far off the mark where it comes to everything else's perception. Animals,
Hmm.
there are some that are hearing based, there are some that are smelling based. Snakes take things in through their tongue, so technically, they would be scent based, or taste based, if you will. So like,
Do you? Let me ask you this. That's interesting. Well, I promise we'll talk about knights more. But when you place your lizard folk, because you know a lot about lizards, do you think about that? Like he probably like tastes the air a lot and stuff, or like that's his like main sensory.
I
You
haven't I haven't gone that deep. It's something that I think I've done with characters in the past, but with a long-term character, I'm hoping it's long-term.
Yeah.
After Saturday night session, who knows? But um, we actually have two brand new players to the game.
Oh,
Um, my sister doesn't have a huge amount of experience with fifth edition, and there's another player in that game who this is their very first time playing is with us. So like, doing things far off the mark might be taken as a little too extreme. So I've tried to be careful, and there's already enough issues with you know that person's significant other in real life, that it's like, all right, that player is playing a human, and humans in this world are basically um like,
subservient.
yes, there you go, they're
Or
they're
like, yeah. Or
lower.
they're actually they're not you guys play it like they're just not even as advanced. They're
Right.
like Neanderthalish sort of,
To
not that much, but
the
very primitive. They're not the advanced culture.
Yes, they are definitely lower tier in the caste system. And my character refers to him as the other character's pet. It's
Hmm.
not, it's not even his own being. uh so there's enough challenges there already.
Sure, sure.
But so, like, with this night thing,
Yeah,
there's
I actually, to tie it into what you were saying, you know, what actually you started with is like that perception that like the night is like dangerous and scary. Like it probably isn't for of most creatures in a D&D world who do have dark vision. It's like I can see just fine. Like we're scared because it's like you can't see, things could be high, you can't hear as well. I mean, if like you're an elf, like everybody has, is skilled in perception, for instance. So to translate that, it's just like I'm not scared of the dark. I can see in the dark. I can hear better than anybody. It's like, yeah, there's something right over there. There's a giant spider's nest over there. So I was gonna suggest
so
this way.
that was one of the, actually, kind of dovetails into one of the things that I wanted to
Sure.
talk about is, society and how night is determined. And specifically, when
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Good question.
elves, when they reverie, they meditate for 4 hours. Well, if they only need 4 hours, that gives them 20 hours a day where they're active. Who's to say, what everyone's activity cycle is? So does an elven city ever shut down? Do,
Right.
do they have,
Probably not. There's probably like smiths who like, well, I can only fold this metal under the moonlight, so
you
I
know
work at like yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. Of course you work at night.
it's not a, I need to rest my body. It's, I need to cycle through these memories, I need to go through this. So the whole sleep culture is ruined. The whole,
Yeah.
concept of, oh, I can't see, elves can see just fine. So while it's not directly night, it is night adjacent. It's night related
Mm-hmm.
as to how every culture views and interacts with, that activity cycle and what have you. Dwarves, they sleep 8 hours. They have their own culture in relation to parties and drinking and what have you. So I would imagine that they would probably function just like a normal human society. But I mean, their things might be shifted, to go a little bit later, but they don't have to worry as much about, the night as well, because they're used to walking around tunnels or walking around in the darkness without as
Well,
much.
I'm curious if dwarves and many, because I actually one of the things I want to mention, because I play a lot of like subterranean races. I've realized over the years it's just neat to me, and I often have thought about just like what night, I mean, and day are meaningless if you live under the ground. So they probably have other natural cycles that they sort of go by, and when you're on the surface world, I try to imagine like, well, it would be pretty different. And often I've thought like they probably would, and they have sunlight sensitivity too. So, I mean, I was taking that into account, but it's like they wouldn't want to adventure in the day and be like, right, I don't want to go, it's like, it's high noon. What are you, crazy? Like, let's go out at night. That's when they would want to do things. And when you play in a party, like I think those are worthwhile to think about because, you sort of inject our normal human perspective in things where it's like, well, we'll travel in the day and sleep at night, but it's like if you're a bunch of dwarves or something, what do you care? It's like just travel. It's like if you travel at night, it's cooler. There's less people out. We can see just fine.
Yeah. So like taking in all of those aspects when
Mm-hmm.
planning a game as a DM or thinking about things as a a group of players, it's going to alter what that adventure is. It's going to allow you
Mm-hmm. That's
outside.
for play. By the way, that's a big player tip. GMs. I mean, you may think it's like throwing a monkey wrench in. It's like, hey, if you're gonna give me like role playing amongst yourselves and world building, that is gold, baby. Like, yeah, adventure at night, do all that stuff. Think about what it's like to be your character in the setting.
I mean, to be fair, like at night you're seeing 60 to maximum 120 feet away, unless
Mm-hmm.
you take one of those things that allows you to go even farther. Whereas during the day you can typically see significantly farther
Yeah,
away.
how far can you see in the day? Does it specify?
I don't believe there's rules in the book, but I mean
I think it might say something about like a mile on a clear day or something like that.
it's possible. It depends upon how much obstruction there is and
Yeah, yeah.
what have you. But I'm certain that information can be found online, if not in
Mm-hmm.
the book itself. Uh, I know without my glasses, I can't see shit. So,
Yeah.
but beyond that, mm, excuse me. But it's just it's a process. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was kind of looking at my research for tonight, I looked at for a long time. We have again that concept of the night is dark, it's evil. And there's so many different connotations to look at that. So like, all right, if you're gonna have that transfer over into your world, if you're gonna have you know that the evil, that night is when evil comes out. I mean, you can tie that into your typical creatures of the night, your vampires, your werewolves, whether the creatures have sunlight sensitivity, whether they have, I only transform via moonlight, whatever it is that the
Yeah.
process starts. You still have to look at, what is the cultural icon? What is it that causes this? We understand as humans that, from the beginning of our race, we can't see in the darkness, and there are creatures out there that can. So if you go out and something gets you, that's your fault. So therefore, we are warned that there are creatures of the night and that you can die. I mean,
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just thinking like a lot of stories and folklore, were just designed to keep people safe. There's like goblins and hobgoblins in the woods and stuff, and it's like, well, now you're playing those characters. It's like, yeah, I am the creepy thing in the night.
But like, when we look at those kinds of things, like, all right, what is the lore? What is your story? What does your world have that is going to reinforce that lore? If it doesn't exist and you don't want to have the night being evil, okay, great. In Forgotten Realms, there is a surface drow deity, and I don't remember who it is, but they worship the moon. They come out like they're not the typical drow, underground.
Oh, like LES Tray or something like that. Something along those lines.
But like, I know that she came up in some of the Forgotten Realms novels. I was like, all right, this is kind of cool. You've got non-evil drow. You've got people who are branching out, and like they're all about performing and dancing underneath the full moon. And how fantastic is this? So like, if you want to go in an alternate direction, go ahead and have races that are dedicated to a moon god or a moon goddess. And there are festivals, and every time the full moon comes out, it's not about fearing werewolves. It's absolutely about like, oh my God, now is the time. We pull out the wine, we pull out the food, and we are dancing the night away until we collapse, because then we are giving ourselves to our deity. Figure out what it is you want your world to be, so that it can be. And you can have some cultures over here totally afraid, and some cultures over here that are like, this is fantastic. And I highly encourage that.
In my Spelljammer game, it came up often, like that night. I mean, you're in space a lot of times, so what is the night? And it's particularly curious when there's lycanthropes involved. So we had just played it that if they were in like in the direct path sight of a moon, they would change. And there was at least once when they were doing like barrel rolls on their ship fighting werewolves who were like turning back into people, because it was like, now they're out of the sight of the thing, now they're
wow. God, that wouldn't,
I mean, it was more kind of, it wasn't like a precision type, it was just silliness, but it was pretty funny.
So we don't have to jump in now because we still got quite a bit of time, but we are getting close to the end of the month. So I've got the stack that we're giving away, some new things to add to the giveaway shelf, or things that have just come in. Okay. I will show off before this is over. And then just as a kind of reminder, typically this live chat is normally a Patreon only thing. We've got it turned on for everybody while this disaster of a COVID is happening, just as a kind of extra thing for all the Nerdarchy fans that are out there. But we do a monthly giveaway through our Patreon rewards that even signing up for $1 a month automatically gives you an entry, and our Patreon giveaway. You can also sign up via the form, you can also send in an entry, go to the website, contests and forms, print it out, mail it out to our PO box. I check that, a couple times a month, and always, right before I select the winner for the giveaway. It's a minimum of a $50 prize that we send out. And our January giveaway is announced in December, is usually like pretty big. Trying to determine how much stuff I want to clear off the shelf.
Just pile it on.
I know at this point in time I've got a whole bunch of stuff that are kind of coming my way. Easy Roller Dicer, very friendly with the channel, and he just put in a huge order to go right into our giveaway shelf.
Oh, cool.
I've got a box of stuff here that came from Wizards with Tasha. I've got a box of stuff from Wizards sent to me by accident, and lovely.
There'll be some nice Christmas giveaways going on around here.
So we'll see how much stuff comes from the old shelf. I know the last time I was on, I showed off some Kobold press stuff that's over there on the shelf. So there's definitely a whole bunch of fun things that we've got to select from, and that's beyond the other things that are already there and have been sitting there for a while. So who knows? I'll try to have a conversation with Dave and figure it out.
Is there still any of those TNT laser etch things?
I think I have one.
Wow. Yeah, they hooked us up with a lot for those giveaways.
Yeah, it was cool. The last PAX Unplugged that we could actually go to.
Yeah.
I
like over a year ago now.
No, I think it was last December.
Oh, was it in December? Okay.
And actually the main guy over there happens to also be named Ted. So it was Ted meet Ted. It was it was amusing. So I talked to him, and he's like, hey, I'll gladly send you a box of stuff. So
cool. So we had a longtime Nerdarchy community person __ in the chat with a question. They say, hello all, it's been a while. Would a hobgoblin nature cleric be an organic creation to play in most settings? I want to be a nature knight more than a fey knight with the oath of the ancients paladin. I think, sure, why not? I mean, hobgoblins are organized, efficient folk, at least in the standard lore, and that sort of applies it to a warlike setting, but there's no reason they couldn't be very organized defenders of nature. Maybe that's their culture, and a nature cleric would be like a powerful representative of that.
So we did a series of videos on basically 3 new ways to do X. And we highly encouraged seeking out seeking out races that people think are very stereotypical one way, and said, oh, well, why not view them a different way? So if you wanted to do the the hobgoblin nature kind of thing, there's 2 ways to look at that. Number one, as Doug says, you could absolutely, let's reculture them, and perhaps they have seen the destruction that other groups of hobgoblins have caused, and they're just tramping all over everything in their way, and it's all about the typical destruction, conquering, and that's not what this sect is about. They've seen the other side, where the typical humans, dwarves, they take an area, they overmine it, they overuse it, and don't give a care about the repercussions. So they have decided, this is where I'm drawing the line. This is my spot. This is my place, and we will defend it to our last. So you can still have that structure. You can still have that, leader mentality that the hobgoblins typically exude, but as opposed to focusing on conquering and destruction, on defense and the natural cycle.
That's a great way to incorporate just storytelling challenges too, where maybe the human or dwarven people nearby that are doing the overdeveloping of the land are like, oh yeah, there's hobgoblins that were holed up in this thing, and maybe they hire your adventurers to go check it out, and it's just well, they live there, and it's these people are trying to mine into our land and stuff.
And of course, the other option is totally just you have a hobgoblin that has left that, and this is a fairly large staple on all of these pseudo bizarre somewhat evil races that wizards are out there, like, oh, you want to play a kobold, a goblin, an orc, a bugbear, you're typically leaving your culture to go do something else. Yeah. It's a standard thing, so we don't need to go into, oh, what are your reasons? You figure out why you're different, and you can go from there. But I mean, I absolutely love the idea of a defender hobgoblin and goblin. Maybe I mean, typically it's the trio of goblinoids.
Yeah.
Hobgoblin.
Hey, and if you do play a hobgoblin, paladin, or cleric, or any sort of paladin or cleric, I just watched a video that encouraged people to play paladins, clerics like a zealot, because you should have conviction in what you believe in, and that is literally what's giving you the power to accomplish your goals every morning. So lean into it.
Well, I mean, I mean, this is now getting pretty far away from knights, but
Yeah.
Like we have talked on the channel numerous times about divinely inspired classes, and the middle of the road is wonky. You should either be leaning heavily into it and be like, all right, my God has given me power, I am a conduit of their divine being, and I will enact their wishes and do my best to fulfill these ideals. And then you have the other aspect of like almost afraid or unsure of the power. You don't know why you have been given it, and feel free to yo-yo back and forth. Like you can waver in your faith. That's completely fine. I mean, I've got a barbarian cleric paladin that I've been playing for a while, and he definitely questioned a couple of times, even after he actually met the avatar of his deity. So yeah, you can have as much fun with that as you want.
I had a player in a game. It was that Spelljammer game, actually. He played a cleric, and he sort of played him like an occultist who would just call on whatever god they needed for like that spell or whatever. If it was like a cast without traces or whatever, then it was like a stealth god. And he just kind of played it like he had knowledge of all the gods, and it made sense in that Spelljammer. He's like, "Where are we? Like which crystal sphere is this?"
Well, I mean,
he would learn all the gods there.
That's another way where, like, typically in our world, most of the accepted religions, and I'm not trying to offend anyone's choices, are like a single, I worship this one thing.
Monotheistic.
That's the word I'm looking for. Doug always with the brain words. I know some of the older religions, Greek, Roman, Norse, like they had a pantheon.
Yeah, they had a bunch of them. That was cool.
Believe me, I know Norse is my favorite to to study and
sure.
But like very rarely, when you've got a pantheon, are you just following a singular deity? You might be like, oh well, it's time to do the harvest, so I'm going to offer a prayer to the god of the harvest, or we're going into battle, time to say a pledge to this particular deity. You say what is on the moment, and there is nothing about 5th edition that would stop you from going in that direction.
And if you're traveling at night, you'd say a prayer to the god of night. Right?
Indeed.
Bring it back around. But you probably would. I mean, and yeah, you don't have to be a cleric to do that either. I mean, those are just fun role-playing things, honestly. Like, I'm surprised at how much this topic made me think about just like the different creature's perspective on the night. It's like, it wouldn't be this scary, dangerous thing. It could be an inspiration for protectors of the night who could be like fighters, and Oath of the Watchers and Tasha's would be cool. Or even an aberrant mind sorcerer. Maybe it's like, well, I can, they're seeing with their third eye. So it's like night, day, I don't know. It's all just some psionic landscape to me. The Twilight Domain, which is, there's an old adventure. I just wrote this down because it was night related DD called Night's Dark Terror. And I don't know much about it, but I remember the cover had, I think it was like a warrior riding a wolf, like a human guy who was like firing an arrow behind him at hobgoblins chasing him through the night. It was like I think it was a first edition AD&D with the orange band adventure. And I think it was one of those longer ones where it was like there's like a rising hobgoblin horde in the region, sort of thing.
Yeah, most of those old school adventures I haven't really dealt with. I haven't played.
Nah, but the art's memorable.
I mean, I've seen more of them, online.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Like
my brother had a lot of them too. I used them flip through them and stuff. And it was good. Double underscore had another great question though. As a player character, is it safer to travel by torch or a spell like dancing lights at night? My first thought is there's a video from Lindy Beige. You ever watch his channel? He's like
I know of him, but
he had a video about torches, and you always see people holding them in front of them, and that actually is not how you would hold a torch. That would ruin your night vision. You're supposed to have it behind your head, which is why people used to hire henchmen to carry your torches in the dungeon. By the way,
I mean, literally, the term torchbearer was for a reason.
Yeah. But I think the best way to travel at night is to ritually cast Unseen Servant and have it carry a torch, or use dancing lights far ahead of you. So it's like, that's the thing, that's the target. So if you want to get really fun, you can put clothes on your Unseen Servant, and that way it could look like, a traveler in the night or anything. You could get really crazy with Unseen Servant. It could be a classic ghost, just throw the sheet over it or dress it up.
Unseen Servant in a black cloak carrying a torch.
You could even put a domino mask. You could tie it on its, force head, hat, pair of boots.
I think it's a little ridiculous now, but
you could do it though. It is a vaguely humanoid, shapeless force.
But to answer the actual question, dancing lights over a torch. Because once you cast it, there's no, it's in my hand, I need to worry about something.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the scenario of your hands are free to do whatever you need.
I think it's pretty far too. It's like 120-foot range. So you could, move them pretty easily well away from you and just turn them off too.
Joe says a wig, a hat, and sunglasses, if you really want to go crazy. Dingus wants to call out the Star Druid seems.
Yes. Oh yeah. I've really been captivated reading through the subclasses in there. They sound really cool. Like everyone, I'm like, ooh, I want to play that.
I'm actually going to be playing a Star Druid.
Really?
So for those unaware, the game that I play on Thursday nights over on Mini Terrain Domain, we are taking this week off for Thanksgiving, but we'll be back on December 3rd. And as opposed to playing the Dawnbringers, M will be back to play Fig, and we are going to play a small adventure, probably a few weeks, a few sessions to figure out what has been going on and why was Fig pulled away from the Dawnbringers. And we're all going to be playing in that game. And I won't give anything else away other than I will be playing a Circle of Stars Druid.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that seemed like a really cool one that appealed to me a lot when I was reading through it.
When I was looking at the classes that people were selecting, I wanted to make something that was going to, fit in well.
Okay.
I did not want to go cleric because I'm kind of playing a cleric-y dude, to some degree already. Even though he's definitely a, frontline fighter, he's got cleric and paladin. So I didn't want to go in that direction, but we needed someone to be able to do some healing if need be. And
I like druids a lot.
I'm very fond of druid. And then so I'm like, stars. As I start reading it, I'm like, man, there's a lot of good flavor here.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And I've never seen a Circle of Stars druid play. Like, right now I'm seeing more fungal druids, Circle of Spores played than anything else.
I've actually played. I realized I played one of those for like almost 2 years with Sean McGovern in that Greyhawk campaign. Yeah, we went from like 3rd to 12th level, I think. Because I came across him in the D&D. I was like, damn, yeah, that was a long time. That's a lot of fun. That game was really fun.
And then Circle of the Land is very basic.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of Circle of the Moon. So I'm like, all right, I want to play something different. It's not a one shot, so I've got the ability to really test it out. So let me grab one of these.
Oh, it's not just a one shot?
No, we're looking to play.
Oh, nice. That's cool. I thought it was.
So
how long are you gonna play for?
About 3 sessions.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
That's the information I have. So
sure.
Let's see.
Who knows? Maybe you guys will love it and play a little more, or revisit them some other time. And I like doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I certainly hope that on our game night on Tuesday nights we revisit those bastards characters. And when this campaign's over, I hope we come back and revisit them, because I'm really enjoying their Tuesday nights game nights was one of the things I wrote down. I often have game nights. It was usually nighttime when we were kids. It still often is now. Actually, not really into early morning gaming. Although when we went to D&D in a castle, I remember we were like, let's just get it over with, like 9 a.m. Yeah. But now when people like, like our Tuesday night game started in the morning, and it was just like, DM at 9 o'clock in the morning.
That was
look at my robot, man.
That was definitely weird. Yeah, before we moved to the game to the live channel, we were gaming 9 o'clock in the morning so that we could get it in before all these other things were going on. It was rather ridiculous, and I had to adjust my work schedule accordingly so that I could still do my job and what have you. And we are past the halfway point, and we'll get back to nights as soon as I this. So as I mentioned, we announced our giveaway. So typically, first Monday of the month, we announce the winner. If I look at my math correctly, I don't know if I'm going to be on for that particular chat. So it might get pushed to the following week, or I might give it to, these guys to announce. But we've got the No Prep Game Master, Geeks.
Okay.
We had him on the live chat.
Yeah, he was cool.
Ultimate Bestiary from Nord Games, as well as the newly released adventure that I am now playing, Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden. And that first session that we played was a little terrifying. Yeah. Even though we're 12th level characters, it was still messy.
Cool.
So this is what we will be giving away. I will put this in a box to mail out. Once we have a winner, and then some things that have come into from our friends over at PR360. Got the Great Dalmuti, the GM screen, the Wilderness Kit.
Oh, okay, that looked cool.
A copy of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
Huge fan. I love that, everything in there so far.
And the Hero's Feast, which
nice.
A lot of people talking about this.
Oh, that's way thicker than I thought. Hold it up again.
Yeah, that's
size. Oh, yeah, that's big. Wow, so, that's the next giveaway.
No. This is just.
Oh, those are going into the. I was like, whoa, man.
I mean, even if that, that would still be a sizable. But I mean, Hero's Feast is a MSRP of 35.
That's only $35 for that.
Yeah.
Wow, people should go down to the Amazon link in the description and buy that too.
So those things are entering into the giveaway shelf. We'll figure out exactly, when they make their way to some Nerdarchy fan.
And I mean, even if that, these giveaways are, I mean, people are so generous giving us stuff. Like they're we say they're at least $50. It's like that's like very rare. It's like they're probably closer to 100.
75 to 100 on average. Yeah. Originally, it used to be like, one thing that was $50 or a couple of things that would add up to. But as we've had more companies send us stuff, to review or, give away, we've just kind of, increased. But from favorite Whiz Kids, this is a big box. And I'm allowed to show it off, even though that says confidential. I asked.
Oh, okay, cool.
So this is every single mini in Wave 13 of the unpainted Magic the Gathering miniatures. So,
whoa, man,
that is a huge amount.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool.
So I've got a whole second box of these that I'm going to be, kind of, painting, looking at. I'll be doing a review post on the website once I get the other box that's supposed to be coming in. But I can tell you that box alone is probably close to $100 worth of minis.
Oh, yeah, that looked really cool.
More than that, because some of those minis are like, $10 to $15 or more by themselves.
Boy, what a great, just a big collection of minis to get. That's great. Kind of give you all sorts of ideas for cool adventures featuring those things. So there was a couple of things in the Dingus McDonald said, how about Tasha's Twilight Cleric? I know Dave's playing one. One of my favorite characters was the Twilight Cleric. I think they're fantastic. I played a Furbolg Twilight Cleric who was afraid of the dark, but he was trying to be brave for the other people in the dark. So that kind of like gave him his own kind of courage. Like, well, I can't let them know that I'm afraid myself. And that was a fun. I've played him a couple of times, but we got to the DM let us pick a uncommon magic item to start. That's when we were second level. I picked a ghost lantern because I thought that would be really cool to have, this magical lantern. And damn, that thing's pretty awesome, by the way. Do a lot of cool stuff. And he had a Morning Star, which I thought was a cool weapon for a Twilight Cleric. Just seemed cool. But I loved the abilities and being able to give other people dark vision that didn't, and not so much for the I could fly into combat and blah blah blah. It was just it was just cool. It was just fun to role play this, and interact with the dark, much like we were talking about earlier. Just think about it in a different way, where it's I'm.
All right, so double underscore has a interesting question, and this was actually another thing that dovetail into one of the things that has happened to me in my gaming career. But traveling at night in the desert brings different challenges. Have you ever imposed temperature changes or temperature conditions on players?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love that kind of stuff. When they're in extreme environments of hot and cold and exhaustion comes in and stuff. Yep. Yes, I have.
When I was in college, there was a friend of ours who was a fantastic role player. Definitely thought outside the box when it comes to game types. But we played a game called Iron Link, and in this world, physics did not act the way our world physics enacted or typically acted. So at midnight, outside hit absolute zero.
Oh, jeez.
If you were not, sheltered, from everything else, like buildings were constructed differently. Like you couldn't have gaps. You couldn't let things get run down and expect to survive. Specific types of shelter had to be built.
Wow.
If you were out adventuring, and it became a thing of okay, do you know how you're going to survive the night? What was an absolute thing. And it definitely made adventuring harder. And there was no Liam's Tiny Hut option in this particular game. Anything that was a magic item that would get you out of, that kind of an issue did not exist in that world, did not exist in his game, because it broke the flavor of what that world was.
Sure.
And it wasn't meant to be, this is an all-encompassing, you always need to be aware of it from the player standpoint, but from the character standpoint, it kind of was. When it's dinner time, you got 6 hours. Can you get to secure shelter or make secure shelter before midnight happens? If not, you're just gonna die. It wasn't a roll. There was no saving throw.
Yeah.
It was you were protected or you were not. And it was never a situation where the DM was like, haha, I'm gonna spring it on you. We didn't travel around the world via teleportation and realize, oh crap, we misjudged time. You've got 3 minutes to get inside. There wasn't any of that, but it was a backdrop of the campaign as an extra hardship. The world was harsh. It was unforgiving. And if you were not, aware and prepared to be able to deal with it, you were going to die.
That's a fun, to further that with our theme tonight. That would be kind of a fun campaign premise too, where people think, oh, things come out at night. just have it like, yeah, that's what happens at night. Like, it's not like, oh, oh, these people are just imagining that. It's like, nope, there's shadow demons going through the streets every night and stuff. Like, you can really do a lot with the concept of night, depending on how you look at it. Like you said, like, maybe like on certain nights, strange things can happen. I mean, those are DM toolkit sort of things. That, in fact, a lot of that Tasha's stuff kind of reminds me of the just like supernatural environments or whatever. It's just like, hey, sometimes when you're looking in a mirror, like it turns into a mirror person and comes after you and wants to kill you and stuff. Those are just fun things you can have happen. So I mean, they can also just be awesome plot devices. Like when night falls, like they are transported somewhere, or maybe you wind up in the twilight of the Feywild realm and stuff. Like, night would be a lot different there. They would probably love, like, there probably is parts of the Feywild they're just in eternal night and twilight.
Well, and that's eternal night is another thing that I was gonna talk about.
Oh, okay.
The when you look at the placement of your world, are you looking at the the celestial bodies, the heavenly bodies, and how they're moving around your globe? Because there are parts of our world where, oh yeah, it's that time of the year, so say goodbye, son, I'll see you in 67 days. So are there areas where you have longer sun and longer darkness or longer night, because of the global positioning of the moon and sun, and okay, this is just where things are. So
Mhm.
if you've got those kind of aspects, then you've got something to consider. So yeah, what if, oh, every year this section of the world is just lit for this long, or this is just in darkness for this long.
Mhm.
Maybe it's not every year, but it's a celestial occurrence that happens only every century or eon. Like
Yeah, I
you
mean, it's all just based on the movement of plants in the sun. I mean, even the other plants in our own solar system don't have the same lengths of days and nights and stuff.
So like
And even on Earth, in like Alaska, it's like light for 6 months or whatever.
right, but like you've got the ability to put that kind of thing into the world, and maybe no one was aware that it was a repeat occurrence. Maybe like there's one crackpot wizard who went mad the last time it happened, and he's the oldest living person, and he was around when it happened the last time, and nobody ever wants to believe the crackpot who's been talking about his fear of the dark from when he was a child. But it's going to happen again, and lo and
Make me
behold,
want to watch Pitch Black.
another great thing to be able to steal from for this particular topic.
Oh yeah.
But it's a great thing to be able to do, of like, okay, oh, night falls, you guys sleep your 8 hours, the sun doesn't come up.
Yeah.
What do you mean the sun doesn't come up?
Boy, how's that that's a great campaign moment, huh?
Like those kinds of things, like you expect, and every time you just make a break from the norm, you've got the ability to put your players on a little wonky. Like they're not
You're
gonna,
giving them the opportunity to speculate. It's like, what's going on, and get curious and want to know things. And
you want to really have some fun. Do this in a game where like you're playing a cleric of Palor, like oh,
oh my gosh,
you
yeah.
worship the sun doesn't come out, but that's how I do my prayers. Okay.
It's funny. I was just joking around with Dave the other day. I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but we were talking about like different gods and them, like how in Greek myth, like Apollo, he would carry the sun across the sky each day, and like if that's your setting, could just been like maybe he's drunk and he just forgot. Like, I mean, they're fallible too. Like gods are, these pantheons give them these like personification.
we're running low on time, so feel free to throw any last minute questions that you want in there. Dingus asked a question about running a low level mage college. We did a whole video on the all wizard party over on the main channel. So if you want to go grab that, I think that is going to answer all of your questions.
I put a link to the post, which also has that video.
Well, there you go.
Which is a lot of fun. Yeah, I love the idea. All whatever parties sound like a lot of fun to me.
It has not been decided yet, but I believe the current leading contender for my monthly game that I run here on the channel, that'll restart in January, is leaning towards an all wizard party.
Oh yeah.
We are definitely looking at an all something party, but right now we're leaning towards an all wizard.
I think I'm going to try that my next fan game, which will be in January. I think.
Yeah, I'm really
That's
hoping.
A fun idea.
I've got a whole lot of ideas for it to be a campaign, and I floated out some fun elements that a couple of the players were like, I'm interested at that, which I won't share because that will be a fun spoiler, and I don't want to spoil that if it happens. But so when you look at all of these different night elements, you really just have to boil it down to what is your concept for your world? How are the cultures that you want to embrace or fear the night? How are they going to act? What are they going to do? And when you really get down into that, you're going to be able to understand and be able to make cultures and make a set of people that are going to differ. Because when you start coming up with your lore, you're going to break away from where everyone else is, because that's yours.
Yeah, and it's a great illustration of how just like something so innocuous like that, just trying, just an everyday thing. That's how we came up with that whole Spelljammer campaign that I ran on the channel, because they just were like wondering what people ate.
Right.
Like what food do they eat, and like, yeah, whether you're a DM and you're world building, or just thinking about the creatures in your world, or you're a player and you just, like we said, you want to play at night, it doesn't have to be like a fully fleshed out thing with like levels of renown and all that stuff. You could just that's your your character story, that they want to protect people at night. That's important to them.
That's where you start. And if the game continues and the order gains in power, you've got the ability to build things. You've got the ability to build things as you go along. Not everything has to be 100% created, from moment one. We talk about on the channel all the time of, start in your circle and play here. And when you're good here, move out. You've got the ability to, build and expand. So
yeah. And that's advice for players and DMs too.
Absolutely.
Just start, like you said, you just start with that one thing, like protecting people at night.
Dave and I differ on a variety of things, and I when it comes to like character backstory, I like to do a lot of work. I like to know who that character is. Dave, he puts the mechanics together. I'm like, I'll figure this out as we play. And Dave's a great improver. He's a great role player. So like there are times where like he'll be like, oh, this is an important part here. I'm gonna share a backstory piece that I happen to create at this moment.
Yeah, so it's like this heartwarming, emotional tale and stuff.
So it's like, okay, and you can go from there. And whether you're a DM or whether you're a player, you've got that ability. You can build off of that. You can be ready to go do however you need. And I do that as a player. I do it as a DM. There are times I feel like I create more as a player than I do as a DM ahead of time, just because.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
As a player, I need to know who I am. I don't need to figure out everybody else.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But with the NPCs, I turn them on until a player asks a question of like, oh, are you married, or do you have kids, or what do you do? Those questions aren't answered until they've been asked. Like, I
Right,
have
right.
to come up with it, because I'm not going to do what some of these DMs do, where they come up with, a campaign settings worth of notes, for every
Before you run a first game.
I don't have the time or the inclination to do that
Yeah,
anymore.
sure.
And I'm not saying that any particular style is wrong, because it's not.
That's just what you, yeah, sure.
Yes.
Totally, man. I totally get. And once I'm sure, I'm not sure, but I would suspect that I'm not the only DM who just like reuses NPCs with different groups and players, just because it's like, oh, this seems like this NPC that I like, from my own campaigns would fit well here, whether it's like a vendor or whatever.
It's like the guy with the cabbage.
Yeah,
or whatever it is. The place with the good bread. Like,
yeah, right.
You've got the ability to, kind of, put characters where they're unexpected, and you've got elements that you can kind of move and share.
They're all lurking out there in the night.
When players latch onto something, what is it about that, and can you replicate that again later? That's really what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Getting them back into what's going on, and having fun, and being able to say good night with everybody happy.
Yeah, go out on a high note.
So thanks for hanging out with us. Dave will be back with a live chat tomorrow at noon. We've got Moon Rises. I think we're at episode 7 or 8, somewhere along those lines.
8, yeah.
Dear God, time's running. Real close to my game. Session 8 will be tomorrow night, where more danger is lurking around the corner for our illustrious heroes.
Oh, yeah, we discovered like a city with smoke rising from it.
Yeah. So whether that's finding survivors of Marina the Merciless, or whether it's no survivors or something else, who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But I guess until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy. It's like a Pavlov's dog. If somebody ever says until next time in real life, I'll be like, stay nerdy.
Yeah, and of course, I go to.
Are we still live?
We're still live.
All right.
I say stay nerdy as I'm pulling up the page to end it, and I'm just sitting here looking at a white screen. I don't know, like, I had the whole thing loaded. I was ready to go, and of course,
Hot mic.
blah, blah. I apologize. Every single time I'm expected to hit this button, I am just.
Maybe Dave will return and turn it off.
He is.
See what's going on in the chat while you're doing that. Let's see. I don't know what this person is talking about here. _. Thanks us for our answers and stories. Oh, thank you for asking them and hanging out with us. Yeah, Mage College. That sounds fun. D&D Academia only has one more entry to the Rogues.
Is that the last all-class party?
Yep. We just did the Rangers this week.
Perhaps I can convince Dave to.
Are we still live?
We are still live.
Oh, okay. Just making sure I didn't spill any beans that should not be spilled upon.
I will try to get Dave to add that one to the list.
But I like those. I think the videos are a lot of fun, and the posts are a lot of fun for me to do too. I imagined Ranger Conclaves as a correspondence school, because they're out there ranging, so they send you course packets of like things to track and observe.
All right. Well, we are finally gotten to my computer being
all right.
So I'm gonna say it for real this time. Stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy. Got it.